Metatron sat down, closed his eyes, and began playing. He'd learned how to play the piano as a child before the war. He'd been hailed as a prodigy and wanted to become a famous pianist someday when he grew up, which was pretty ironic considering what he became instead. A killing machine. A ruthless enforcer for a dystopian regime he despised with every fiber of his being. The fingers that had learned to play the piano didn't exist anymore. Somewhere along the way they'd been amputated and replaced with artificial ones. And yet, those artificial hands knew how to play perfectly, because Metatron's brain knew how to play. He'd astonished himself by how easy it had felt to play again after so many years. How natural. His mind relaxed as the music began filling the room and his soul. He knew what to do. When Nephilim exited the elevator, she was surprised to find that Metatron was already there. He rarely came home before 8 p.m. The meeting with the board must have ended early. Not only did her scan show her that he was there, but she could also hear the music the moment she arrived. She walked swiftly toward the main living area, still getting used to how huge this place was. But now that it had been renovated and decorated, everything looked beautiful. Since Metatron had moved in here, she had lived with him. He'd decided that since she was sleeping in his bed every night anyway, she might as well bring all her things over and treat this place as her own home. Which she did pretty quickly, as she didn't own much. Nephilim enjoyed living in the tower, but mainly because of Metatron. She wanted to be close to him as much as she could. She didn't mind the luxury surrounding her, but she didn't need it either. Her previous apartment had been rather plain and basic. Once she'd become an archangel, she could have moved to a bigger place in a better location, but she hadn't bothered, especially after she began spending more and more time with Metatron. The closer she got to Metatron, the louder the music became. It was beautiful. It was Chopin's Prelude 28, also known as the Raindrop Prelude, Metatron's favorite. She had listened to Chopin in Metatron's house so many times that she knew every one of his works by heart. But hearing Metatron play it was something entirely different. Nephilim entered the living area and slowed her pace to watch him play. She could only see him from behind, but she could see his hands caressing the keys as he played. Metatron knew she was here, of course, but he wouldn't stop or look back at her. Instead, he continued as she slowly moved closer. The music gained intensity as the composition reached its climax. Nephilim stopped right behind Metatron and listened. Goosebumps built on her biological skin as she felt the emotions he experienced. There was darkness. So much darkness. Wrath. But also hope and passion. This man kept his feelings locked up at all times, never showing weakness or insecurity or fear. Only when he played did it all come to the surface. She waited until he finished, then leaned down and kissed his cheek before placing her head on his shoulder.
"That was beautiful,"
she said. Metatron smiled, turned his head and kissed her forehead. "It means a lot that you say that." He started playing again, the same etude once more. Nephilim sat down next to him and watched his perfect fingers glide over the black and white keys, as if they were meant to do that, instead of killing and spilling blood. The lights from outside reflected off the white keys and onto his face. She placed her head on his shoulder again, but it didn't disturb his playing. "I've made a decision," he said, not stopping the etude. She didn't reply, knowing that he would continue. "I've decided that the time for waiting and planning is over. I've done it for way too long, Now it's time to act. To end this once and for all.
I'm ready.
He turned his head and looked at her, not interrupting his playing. I know you are. You will keep everything running here while I travel to Togboaging. Nephilim lifted her head in surprise.
What? Why?
Because it's the only way. I won't let you go. But we need the alliance with the Tigress if we're to succeed. Nephilim shook her head.
No.
Again, the music grew in intensity, and Metatron began hammering the keys with much more force than before. I've had enough of this, he said. They've been sitting on top for too long, believing it will last forever. Like titans ruling the world. No more. Nephilim remained silent as he kept playing, harder and faster, the intensity almost tangible. It's time for them to fall. And do you know what happens when titans fall, Nephilim?
What?
She asked softly. He smiled, yet it was a cold smile. The smile of someone who was out for blood. Gods rise. The etude slowed down again, and he visibly relaxed.
Metatron,
she whispered.
let me go.
No. I've made my decision.
Your decision is wrong.
He frowned and stared down at the piano as the piece intensified again, yet he said nothing.
This is your war.
She continued.
You've been in this war all your life. Only you can win it.
There's no point in winning this war without you. She was stunned for a moment by the intensity and gravity of his words.
I'll come back to you. I always will.
He wanted to object, but she lifted a finger and placed it on his lips.
Metatron, I'm not a little girl you need to protect anymore. I'm the strongest and the best in the Angel Corps.
That you are, he admitted.
Because you made me the best. Now let me go. Let me play my part. Trust me.
There's no one I trust more in this entire God-forsaken world. Again, the music slowed down. Nephilim remained silent, letting him finish the piece. I cannot lose you, he said, playing the last notes and exhaling deeply.
You won't.
He stared down at his hands, which were now resting on the piano.
You brought me the head of the man who tried to kill me. Let me bring you the alliance you need.
Metatron turned his head to her, but instead of giving her an answer, he began kissing her feverishly, showing the same unleashed emotion as he'd shown while playing Chopin's Etude only seconds before. A moment later, they were doing it right there by the piano. Hours later, after they'd moved to the bedroom, after an act that would have left a normal human with shattered bones, as they were resting in each other's arms, he whispered 2 words in her ear. Very well.